The world is full of creepy people, and our encounters with them are seemingly far too often. Please join me in welcoming the Gothic Librarian to this collaboration. So get comfortable and let the darkness take control. In freshman year of middle school, there was a once-a-week group therapy session with developmentally delayed kids that involved them doing some craft activity or playing with Legos or watching a movie as a group. It was half normal kids, half DD kids, and the normal kids could sign up for it. I signed up pretty much instantly, as it meant an escape from history once a week. One of my best friends at the time had the same idea, and it basically turned into a second lunch period for us. The whole thing was overseen by a therapist named Bruce, and it was generally pretty laid back. Bruce was an overweight 50-ish balding guy with an attitude and general appearance of Santa Claus. He ran most of the school's extracurricular activities and was pretty much universally liked. The other important player in this school was a kid I'll call G. You know the stereotype of psychopaths being obsessed with animal torture as kids? Well, this was dead on G. He would regularly tell these long, excited stories during group time about how much fun he had last week tearing the leg off a squirrel that he caught in his live trap, or other similar things. Most of us had sort of ignored him, and it was just assumed that he would talk and make up gross stuff to get attention. So one week, we were playing with Play-Doh. Since it was a DD group, the huge tub of Play-Doh had long since assumed a uniform shade of turd brown, and the general drive was to get people to build things and tell stories about them. Most people just built dinosaurs or threw clay at each other. G, for whatever reason, had a huge flat square slab laid out and was building 4 large pillars on the corner. He eventually put a roof on it, which wouldn't stay on due to the lack of interior supports. The normal kids would always leave a few minutes earlier as the group time ran into the start of next period and we would need to get to class. I was no different and walked out whilst Bruce and the other kids were smashing Play-Doh, giggling and throwing chunks of turd dough back into the bin. I got to my next class and the teacher wasn't there. Nobody knew what was going on, and about 10 minutes later she showed up looking frazzled and would not give us any other information other than something happened. Being 6th graders, we went nuts with speculation. A few hours later, I ran into a friend from the group who was visibly jumpy and disturbed. He wouldn't tell me why, other than mentioning that group therapy would be cancelled indefinitely. I kept prying for information and eventually got the story out of him. So during the cleanup, the Play-Doh had been compacted back into the tub, and this involved lots of smashing Play-Doh sculptures. A bit that the DD kids greatly enjoyed at this point, when they tried to smash other people's stuff. G's house was one of the last things to go. He smashed down 2 columns, and let one of the other DD kids smash one of the others, and finally dared Bruce to smash the last one really hard. The last one had a pocket knife in it. We never saw either Bruce or G ever again.
I hitchhiked alone for 3 weeks in the Balkans this summer. Being a girl alone can be risky, but the drivers I encountered were super nice, and some of them even bought me food and water. Everybody was concerned about my safety, but I was just fearless and confident. The incident happened the last days of my trip. Before I start my story, I feel the need to defend hitchhiking. It is overall not as dangerous as people think. I got 22 rides in total during my trip, and just one went wrong. I don't mean to discourage anybody, especially girls, from hitchhiking, because it is an amazing experience. I, myself, should have been more careful anyway. I feel bad for providing people with another hitchhiking gone wrong story, while there are so many beautiful ones. I plan on writing everything in a blog, so if you are interested, I can post it in the comments when finished. So, I had already hitchhiked successfully through 5 countries. But I had a bad feeling this morning while walking to a gas station outside of a little town. I started asking couples and families if they go to my direction, but I was unlucky. So I decided to raise my thumb like I usually did the last weeks. Immediately, a guy stops and asks for sex. I refuse, but he stays 5 minutes trying to convince me. The minute he leaves, another car stops with 2 guys inside. They don't ask for sex, but they look at me in the worst way possible, so I refuse the ride. After 1 minute, a red van stops. The guy is young and good looking with a nice smile. He looks trustworthy enough. I jump in the van. The first 30 minutes we make some small talk and things are looking good. But then he starts to talk about sex. What is wrong with men in this place? I ask him to stop because I feel uncomfortable. He calls me a cold woman and says I should relax. He starts talking about how hot I am and that his dick is going to explode. I ask him again in my most serious way to stop talking about his dick. I explain to him I am not a prostitute and I am not exchanging rides for sex, so if this is not okay, he can leave me here. He looks serious and he says he will take me to my destination. Awkward silence for 10 minutes. Then he says, "Say something, I picked you up to entertain me." I am thinking this ride is not good at all. We stop in a place to eat. I am seriously thinking to stay here and get another ride. But I look around and the place is full of men, not even one woman, and all of them look at me like they want to rape me. I decide to stay with my driver. He looks more serious now. Maybe he will be okay. We get back in the car, and after 5 minutes driving, he tries to convince me to go to his eco-village, only 5 kilometers from here. I refuse multiple times, but he makes the turn anyway. I am very angry and scared. We take a small mountain road. There are indeed signs for this eco-village. I am thinking I can get another ride from there. We arrive in this eco-village, but he doesn't stop. He keeps driving. That is the limit for me. I grab my backpack, always keep your stuff with you, and I open the door. I jump out of the van. He keeps driving. I know he will make a turn and come back. I have to find a safe place. There is a woman working on a field. I go and stand in front of her. Indeed, he appears again, driving to the highway we were before. He stops the car for a few seconds and then he keeps going. I realize I am still in danger, but at least out of this pervert's car. I start walking, my hands were shaking. I arrive in this eco village. I am thinking that these people can help me. Maybe give me a lift to the highway, because this guy could be waiting for me anywhere and the road is mostly empty. I enter the eco village and I go directly to the toilet. Before I enter, a woman stops me and she politely asks me if I paid for entrance. I tell her I really need to use the toilet first. I am almost crying. She agrees. I enter the toilet and I start crying in shock. I try to relax, but it is hard. I go out of the toilet and this woman is waiting for me. I try to explain to her what happened, but I start crying again. She looks concerned. She brings me to her boss. It is a 50-year-old woman that looked to me like a mother figure, like a fellow woman in this world, happy to help. I try to explain to her what happened while crying. She also looks concerned. She invites me in her bungalow, then out from the back door. At this moment, she tells me something like, "Call the police, darling, you are not welcome here," before she slams the door in my face. I can't believe what just happened. I want to shout at her that tomorrow it could be her or her daughter in my place. That she's a mean person, and if this guy is waiting for me, she will be responsible for my rape. But instead, I keep crying while exiting the eco village. I start walking these 5 terrifying kilometers in this empty road. There is a man loading his car with his children around him. I approach him, begging for a lift to the highway, but he just tells me to walk. I think of calling the police, but I don't know the number and I don't trust them anyway. But looking back, this is what I should have done. I keep walking and walking, trying to calm down. Sometimes there was a house with a couple of people outside. Other times there was nobody and I was shitting my pants. Luckily, no sight of a red van. I finally make it to the highway. Now I am crying because of relief. There is a bus stop. I am so lucky. The bus comes after 1 hour. I spend my emergency money for a ticket and I arrive safely to my destination. I hitchhiked very carefully one more time after this incident. I think I need some time to feel comfortable on the road again. But I can't simply forget how beautiful hitchhiking can be most of the time. Pervert driver, let's not meet again. Eco Village hypocrites, I will find you on TripAdvisor and I will ruin you.
It was 2001, and my friend and I were both 17, and driving back from a late movie to my house one night. I lived in a pretty rural area in Maine, about 20 minutes from the nearest town. As we were driving down the highway through the woods, we passed a median with a car sitting in it, facing in the oncoming direction, with all its lights turned off. Right after we drove past it, it flashed its lights, did a 3-point turn, and began driving behind us. We giggled that, oh, it must be a gang initiation. We're gonna get murdered. because this was Maine, and that obviously was not happening. The turnoff for my road was a few miles away, and this car stayed behind us the whole time. We made the left turn, and the car kept going down the highway. Phew. But 30 seconds later, we realized that the car must have backed up on the highway and made the turn after us. Now we were getting a little worried. There was still one more road to turn down before we got to my house, and this was way in the woods. And the car did the same thing, backed up and made the left after us, and now we were legit freaked. I had a long driveway, and the car followed us right into the driveway and almost up into my house, which had all the lights on because my mother was home. We ran into my house just in time to see the mystery car reverse back down the driveway and drive off. To this day, we still have no idea why the car was following us, if they thought that we were someone else, or if they actually had bad intentions and only changed their minds when they saw that my house lights were on. Since we only ever saw the front of the car, we never got a license plate, or any better description other than a blue car.
When I was 18, almost 10 years ago, I had a phone call that completely changed my life. I got woken up at almost 6 a.m. by an unknown number. I figured it was my boyfriend, now husband, since his phone usually showed up as the famous unknown number. He usually called me before going to work at around 7:30 a.m., but sometimes he'd call me at 6-ish if he wanted to talk to me while waking up. I answer, he says, "Hey baby," and I'm still half asleep but start talking. He tells me he has a little problem and that he's feeling really, being 18 and having to start dating him recently, let's just say I was very willing to, So we start, and he tells me how he absolutely loved seeing me last weekend, how good I looked, how he absolutely loved my hot red panties. He basically described what we had done during the weekend. If I remember properly, his parents weren't home for the weekend, and we had the house and the car to drive around, and we had lots of fun, obviously, and how much he loved some of the things I did to him. I replied I was more and more awake, and we were having a really good time. Then I noticed it was almost 7 a.m., time where he usually takes his shower, eats, and gets ready to go out the door, and basically ask him, "So this is fun and all, but aren't you going to get ready for work?" This is giving me chills typing it, but he basically replied, No, I think I'll skip work today. What about I come over?" Now, the thing is, by then I was pretty awake, and although the voice that was talking to me was very similar to my boyfriend's, something threw me off. My boyfriend doesn't say the no like he does. Besides, I knew that unless he was sick, my boyfriend would never skip work, because he was scheduled on shifts, and missing a shift was a big deal that could get him fired. I kind of froze. He noticed it, so he said, "Oh, babe, you're right. I should start getting dressed. So you want me to come over?" By then, I swear that his voice was back to my boyfriend's voice, and I just felt silly. So what if he wanted to skip a day at work? Maybe he just wanted to see me. So I tell him, yeah, sure, come over. It will only be us here. He replied, great. Then he asked, where is it? Wait, what? My boyfriend knows where I live. He had been coming over for weeks now. I laugh it off and tell him, ha, you know where it is? That's when he laughed, and his laugh was absolutely not my boyfriend's laugh. I instantly told him, you're not boyfriend's name, are you? He said, can you just hang on, please? I need to go grab something. Meanwhile, I get a text from my boyfriend. I figured that maybe this is just a sick joke. Maybe he coordinated it perfectly. Maybe he's sick and his voice doesn't sound the same. The text from my boyfriend said, at the subway, going to work now. Love you. I texted him saying, why are you texting me? We are talking right now. At which point, my actual boyfriend called. He was very confused at first and figured someone had hacked into his MSN. When I told him it was by phone, he reassured me that he absolutely did not call me and that whoever it was not him. He had to go as the subway train was there, but that he will call as soon as he was at work. Then the other guy called back. I picked up. I asked him, who are you? What do you want? I pretty much went crazy on him. He said that his name was Mike, that we had met a long time ago, which was impossible because my phone number was fairly recent, and that he just wanted to have fun, that he didn't know I had a boyfriend. I asked him how did he know what I was wearing and what did we do and how he got my phone number. He just said, where are you? Why don't we meet? At which point I hung up. He called again. I didn't answer. Within minutes, I had called my mom to tell her what happened. She told me to change my phone number and not to stay home alone. I changed my phone number right away. I also alerted local police. They opened a file, but nothing ever came out of it. I still wonder how he knew what we did and what I was wearing. My boyfriend swore at the time he would never let any of his friends know all that, but his parents' house did have lots of windows and we weren't exactly careful. Mike, let's never, ever meet.
When I was 10 years old, I had a really freaky thing happen to me at my house. I woke up in the middle of the night, really thirsty. It was around 1 in the morning, and the entire house was dark. I got out of bed and went downstairs to get a drink. Conveniently, my mother had just gotten up to do the same thing. We head downstairs to the kitchen for some water, and right when we got to the kitchen, a car randomly pulled into our driveway and a man got out. My mother and I are standing in our kitchen as we watch him very aggressively start coming towards our door. He was wearing a hoodie and black gloves, really big burly dude. Right before he reached the door, my mum flipped on the light. Since the entire house was dark, he couldn't see us, but we could see him. The instant the light flipped on, he stopped, looked right at us, and ran back into his car and hauled us out of the driveway and down the road. We never saw the guy again, and I don't know if he was trying to break in or what he was planning to do, but I had nightmares about it for weeks. Scared the shit out of me. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. I'd like to give a special thanks to the Gothic Librarian for helping me out on this collaboration. Be sure to click on screen now to follow me over to her channel to finish up with the collaboration, as well as smash that like button and subscribe, as you won't want to miss what I have in store for you next. Remember that you can submit your story to my Reddit page or email using the links provided in the description to have it read in an upcoming video. And feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram for updates and behind the scenes. But anyway, for now guys, I'm going to sign off. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.